Hi, my name's Gareth and I make videos to help people improve their English so they can get higher scores in the IELTS test. In this video, we're going to look at part 3 of the IELTS speaking test. We're going to look at a sample question and answer. We're also going to be thinking about how we can give a really good, clear answer in this part of the test. We'll be thinking about a specific structure you can use to give a slightly longer answer in this part of the test. Now, you probably know in part 3 of the test, you're going to get some quite complex questions that require some slightly more complex answers if we compare them to the sort of answers you're going to be giving in part 1 of the test. Well, part 3 answers need to be a bit longer. Now I want to show you a structure that you can use to give a nice long and clear answer and keep it focused. Really, this is the key thing to give a good answer in part 3. You need to focus on the structure of your answer to make sure it's nice and easy for the examiner to follow and listen to, and it keeps you focused. Now, let's think about the structure first before we look at the question. Now, I think probably one of the best structures you can use for your answer here is a 4-step structure. Now, this is a slightly longer structure than maybe we would normally use, but this is what I want to show you in this video, is a slightly longer structure. So the first step is to give a direct answer. Give a nice, clear and direct answer to the question, using information from the question in this sentence. Really, this direct answer only needs to be one sentence. So that's the first step. Now, the second step is to explain that direct answer. Now, imagine the examiner is asking you why, and you have to explain that. But go on to explain it after your direct answer straight away. Don't wait for the examiner to ask you why. So that's the second step, explain why. Now, usually this could just take one sentence, but sometimes you might need more, especially if it's a complex question. Maybe you need 2 sentences to explain why. Really, the more concise you can be here, the better. So that's the second step. Then we can move to the third step. Now, the third step of the answer is to give an example. If you can think of a specific example that can support what your direct answer and explanation was. So giving an example to really make it clear to the examiner that you can really support your opinion. So that's the third step, and really you could just stop there. And very often this is okay. But if you feel like you need to give a slightly longer answer or you want to explain things a little more, then you can move on to a 4th step. And here we can explain an alternative or the opposite answer. So this is usually useful in a type of question that it's asking for a kind of yes or no answer, or a question where you've got 2 options to choose from. And here you explain the other side as well to show you understand that. So that's the 4th and final step. And sometimes you can use that, but you don't always have to. It's just a nice option to give a longer answer. Sometimes you might want to do this, but not always. So let's have a look at a specific question here and an example answer to this question. So here's the question we're going to look at. It's on the topic of seasons. Let's read it. Do you think the seasons still influence people's behavior? So here it's a do you think question. So really your options are yes or no, or I guess you could be in between a bit, but I always think it's best to be nice and direct with your first sentence of your answer, giving a direct answer. So let's have a look at let's have a look at the answer to this question, and maybe we can analyze it in a bit more detail after we've looked at the whole answer. So here we go. Do you think the seasons still influence people's behaviour? Yes, I do think the seasons affect how we behave. We still wear different clothes depending on the weather, and clothes shops change what they sell according to the season. We also adapt our habits and daily routines according to the time of year. For example, people in my country like to eat outside in their gardens in the summer, but we can't do that during the other seasons. On the other hand, I don't think we notice the change in seasons when it comes to buying food. The big supermarkets import food from around the world, so most people don't buy seasonal food and vegetables anymore. There we go, that's the end of the answer. So you can see there it is quite a long answer. And it's not always good to give really long answers in part 3. Sometimes you want to keep it a bit shorter than this. This is a nice example of kind of the longest possible answer you should be giving in part 3 of the test. It's still concise, getting straight to the point, but we've got that 4th step on top of the first 3 steps. Now, let's break this down and look at each step individually. So the first step I had was the direct answer. Now you can see in this direct answer, I answer straight away with the word yes. And this is a good way to kind of focus your answer and show the examiner you understand that it's a do you question. So yes. And then I answer the question directly by copying a word from the question. Think. So I say, I do think. So there we go. And I copy the seasons. We don't change that. We haven't paraphrased anything yet, really. But then in the second part of this sentence, you can see a bit of paraphrasing. Yes, I do think the seasons affect how we behave. So you'll see here, we've changed the word influence to affect. This is a nice synonym that works in this context. And also, instead of saying people's behavior, we've said how we behave. So we've changed that noun behavior to the verb behave. And of course, the grammar's changed slightly there because we're using how we behave rather than people's behavior. So it's showing a bit of paraphrasing here, but really you don't have to worry too much about that. Remember, this is a really high level answer, but if you find it easier literally just to directly copy that question, then you can do that at first. But the idea here is we're giving a nice, clear and direct answer. It's not too long, it's straight to the point. Now after that, we're explaining why. We've given that answer, or basically how it affects people's behavior. So here we can see it says we still wear different clothes depending on the weather. So we're kind of explaining why and giving an example here, I guess, about clothes, but nothing too specific yet. And then talking about what clothes shops sell. And clothes shops change what they sell according to the season. And then also talking about habits and daily routines. Maybe we're explaining even more here. We could stop after that first sentence, but to make it even clearer, we're explaining why a bit more. We also adapt our habits to daily routines according to the time of year. Again, here we've changed things a bit. Rather than repeating the word season again, we've said according to the time of year. So that goes through the second step, and then we move on to the third step, which is giving an example. And we make it clear that we're giving an example by using the phrase for example. And then we've got a specific example from my country. People in my country like to eat outside in their gardens in the summer. So that's the example straight away of how we change our behavior. We're eating outside, not inside. It's the example of how we change our habits and daily routines. So it's supporting that idea in the second sentence, or the third sentence, right? The second part of our answer. But then we have the sentence continued, but we can't do that in other seasons. So of course it's just saying we can't eat outside during the winter, and it's explaining that. So a nice specific example there. Now, of course we could just stop there, but I did go on to explain the opposite side, right? The way that some things don't actually change or our behavior doesn't change. So we're comparing here. So we're beginning that sentence that is the opposite part of the structure with the phrase on the other hand. Nice phrase there to show we're contrasting something. On the other hand, I don't think we notice the change in seasons when it comes to food or shopping for food. So this makes it nice and clear that some things don't change, and we understand that. And we explain a bit more here. The big supermarkets import food from around the world. So most people don't buy seasonal fruit and vegetables anymore. So really there, we're just explaining something that doesn't change. We shop the same no matter what the season is in general, in the modern world. So there we go. We've got those 4 clear steps there. And you can see it is quite a long answer, but we don't go off topic. We're still focused on that question. There's nothing in the answer that doesn't relate directly to the question. It's a nice 4-step structure that you can use to give longer answers in part 3 of the test. So now really what you need to do is go and practice using this structure. I've given you a nice clear example. You can find other questions that ask you to kind of give your opinion the way we're giving opinion in part 3 of the test and practice using these 4 steps. But there we go. I hope this video has been useful to you and you really understand this 4-step structure for part 3 a bit better. And if you did enjoy the video, then don't forget to give it a like. And if you haven't already, then remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future videos on similar topics. So there we have it. Thanks for watching and see you again in the next video.